Coach, welcome back to the podcast. I really appreciate you taking the time to join me. And I will tell my guests, you look very, very dapper. I said it first before my guests could say it in the comments.
You're too
Um,
kind.
Once again, thank you for coming back. I don't want to butcher any of your introductions, credentials, or certifications. If you would just run through those so everyone can be as impressed as I am.
You give me far too much credit. And John, thanks for having me back. It's an honor always to be here with you. You're an incredible individual. It's always fun to see what you have going on and what
Thank you,
you're
Coach.
working toward. Yeah. In terms of me, I am Dr. Cody Dakota Wooten. Um,
DR, DR, DR. There we go. There
yeah.
we go.
I run a business called The Leadership Guide, where I work with people primarily in business contexts. But one of the things that I discovered early on in my business, because I started about 10 years ago, and around 7 years ago, I kind of started to notice that there was a problem in the leadership development world.
Mm,
And it came in this percentage that I found. It was 80% of leadership development programs completely fail.
that's
And
a
at the
big deal.
time, yeah, exactly. At the time, it was a $350 billion industry. And I had to ask, how can you spend $350 billion and fail 80% of the time? It didn't make sense to me. And so I started to research and investigate into that. And really, one of the big areas that kind of I started to go down and have been continuing to go down since is psychophysiology. And so I've gotten all sorts of different degrees at this point, different certifications. I have my Doctor of Functional Medicine, Doctor of Natural Medicine, Doctor of Holistic Medicine. I'm certified in neuroscience coaching, different aspects of the nervous system, neurocardiology, just to name a couple of the different things. I think I recently did a count on all my different certifications, and I've got like 40 something
Yeah,
different
maybe.
certifications and
I,
degrees.
I thought I was up there,
Um,
coach. You got me beat. Okay. I thought when I hit double digits, I was like, ah, I'm that guy. Coach, you got me.
I've dedicated a lot of time, money, and resources into trying to understand how humans function at the highest potential. And it's really just been an incredible journey along the way. And I've had just some incredible honors along the way as well. So, but that's just a little bit about me.
Once again, coach, highly impressed. I hope the audience is as impressed as I am. It's amazing that I get to call you coach as well as continue to be on my podcast. Um, well, coach, I obviously I brought you back or I brought you on the podcast beforehand. And I'm bringing you back again because I want to kind of delve into a specific topic. And obviously, you listed off a bunch of credentialing and a bunch of skills that and rabbit holes that we could go in and go under. I we could I could have I could create a whole other podcast where I just get to interview you, Coach. Not today,
Not today.
one day, but not today. So today I want to pick one specific topic and just extrapolate from your brain. Um, just a wealth of information from that people might find informative, educational, and hopefully get to walk away with some knowledge and skill that better impacts their life or better helps them perform.
For
And
sure.
so the discussion, the card and the choose your character that I'm going with today is the nervous system,
All right.
which I know you are well versed in. If you could first give a baseline of information about what the nervous system is, what its function
Mhm.
is for the audience, and how you how essentially you view it, because essentially we can all look at something and kind of describe it slightly differently. So if we could give that base knowledge of what the nervous system is before I ask you a bunch of questions about it.
Yeah, sure. So, one of the things that I would say kind of the nervous system is important with is it drives function of everything that we do. Um, and within our body, a lot of people think about neurons. And when you think about neurons, most people think about what? What would you say?
I think neurons. I think like synapses, like the different like
Hmm.
connections and sending and signaling.
And where would they normally be?
Brain.
The brain, exactly. And indeed, the brain is a huge area of neurons, but it is not the only place where we have neurons within the body. We actually have neurons all throughout the body.
Mm.
And really, we have four different major concentrations that are able to interdependently think with each other and individually on their own. And so the brain is one of them. We have our neurocardiology, which is our heart brain. We
Mm.
have our neurogastroenterology, which is our gut brain. And then we have our nervous system. And each of these systems are able to both work together and separately from each other in order to drive all of the functioning of our lives. And
Mm.
so, with the nervous system specifically, one of a classic example of this is you're in the kitchen, right? And you put your hand down, and suddenly you lift your hand up, and your brain starts to go, "Why did I lift my hand up?" And then you start to feel a little warmth on your hand, and you look down where your hand was and you realize that you placed your hand on the stove that was on,
Damn.
right? It happens to people. Now, what happened in that moment is that your nervous system through your hand was getting signals that there was something wrong. And so before the brain even consciously understood what was going on, the nervous system reacted in a survival mechanism to make sure that your hand didn't get damaged. And so essentially, that's what the nervous system is designed to do. It's designed to regulate everything within the body to make sure that we survive.
Okay, okay. I think the first ever example I remember hearing about this was in some kind of class in college where essentially like someone's like, does the heart need the brain to function? And the answer was it was like yes, no, and then kind of. And I hit the yes because like, all right, first of all, the brain controls everything. We learned that in like the third grade. Obviously, it's yes. And the answer was said kind of. It's because technically, like, if you have a stroke and your brain is dead, your heart still and your brain can no longer like send signals to your heart. Your heart still has the ability to like to pump because your heart's trying
Mm-hmm.
to keep you alive. Because this is essentially like yes, the brain can impact and signal, but the heart as a neurocardiological like entity or whatever
Mm-hmm.
can function in its own right. It's outright.
Yeah. I actually, fascinating enough, I would actually take that even a step further
Hmm.
in that our heart specifically, this we don't have to go into this rabbit hole today, but the heart actually has its own communication system between itself and other hearts. And so our hearts can literally transmit different information to each other via electromagnetic waves that are produced by the heart.
Is it?
Um,
That's why I think I read that like laying next to a person you love or something like that, like
mhm.
your heartbeats eventually sync
Yes, exactly.
and
It's 100%.
you're
Mhm.
breathing the more time you spend with that person or the more you have them around or like the longer you date or together or however the scaling is, it's like it happens better, it happens more in sync, and it happens faster apparently. Where it's
Yes,
like you're in like a time and space and like if they're up regulated and you're down, like they can essentially you can bring someone down to your calmness.
yes, yep, exactly.
Okay, okay, science. Well, different rabbit hole for a different day, because once again, I think that's a podcast episode within itself. Thank you for that, like macro view of the nervous system. So
Hmm.
I guess I don't want to get mic too micro, but I guess the next layer, meso.
Hmm.
So, um, as strength and conditioning coach, the two aspects of the nervous system that I usually have to deal with are the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system, and
Correct.
how we can dial those in or control those things in a way to elicit results. Coach, could you tell everyone what the how you view or how you describe both the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system, as well as their functions when we're talking about the brain and body?
Yeah, for sure. And their function, the basic function within both of those is to drive survival, right? And to make
Mhm.
sure that our survival needs are met depending on whatever scenarios we're in. And so if we're looking at parasympathetic and sympathetic, a lot of people break them down into two phrases, right? Fight or flight and rest and digest.
Mm.
And so, depending on what scenario you're in, your body has a limited amount of energy at any given time, right? And
Right.
the technical term is magnesium ATP, Mg-ATP. That is the actual electrical currency that your body runs on. And so it can't use all of that to do everything all the time. And so your body wants to be selective in how it uses that energy in any given moment. And to make sure that it does that, it kind of separates it into these two states. If you're in danger, it goes into that fight or flight state and it'll send energy to specific areas of the body so that you can handle that situation, so that you can fight or flight, basically. And there's
Mhm.
other things in there too. You have fight, flight, fawn, freeze is what they have today. And I think they're trying to add a fifth one that I can't think of at the top of my mind. But the idea behind it is that they're all situations that when our body recognizes that we're in danger or that we need to perform, it is able to send the necessary energy to get that done. And then when we're not in danger or we don't need to perform, we go into rest and digest, which sends the energy to do other things such as digestion, such as muscle recovery, so that we're ready for anything else that could come our way. And that's kind of the two primary ways that most people look at those two systems of the nervous system.
Okay. So the primary function essentially rest, digest. When we say parasympathetic, we mean rest, digest. Say
Mm-hmm.
sympathetic, we mean like kind of like a fight, flight, more. Because I mean, freeze and fawn, those are those the like freezing. Obviously, you're like still, and fawning, you're
Mm-hmm.
kind of like feigning like attention, emotion. Like those things are technically still states of excitability, even though they don't like sound
Yes,
excitable, right? Okay.
they're survival mechanisms, right?
Mm.
And essentially, what happens with those two, right? In a freeze state, what happens is generally you're in a situation where you either have never experienced it before, and so your body doesn't know what to do within it, or it is such an overwhelming sensation that your body literally is unable to register because it's basically there's too much happening at once, and so your body is overloaded with information, and in that overload it freezes. And
So
then
too much
fawning,
stimuli.
yeah, and then fawning is typically a behavior where when we register that we're in danger, and we have the belief that we can get on the good side of whatever is putting us in that danger, we try to get on the good side to get ourselves out of that danger.
Mm. Okay. I'm a cat dad now. I have a cat,
Mm-hmm.
and I learned that like cats, when you first get them, purr more frequently because they don't necessarily understand you yet.
Mm-hmm.
And so like this could be dangerous. So then they just purr. Like, yeah, like I like you, I feel good. And purring apparently like to our nervous system like does a very good
Mm-hmm.
wholesome thing. So then we love it. So we just hold it more until then they realize like, oh, we're safe now. We don't have to purr as much. Very annoying.
Yeah,
Um
that would be a perfect example of a fawning behavior.
okay, okay. Well, okay, so we have parasympathetic, sympathetic, fight and flight. And then we have the way that the nervous system like talks to each other, right? So I believe the mechanism is afferent and efferent. Could you describe those and how those correspond in both nervous systems or both aspects?
Um, I don't know if we necessarily need to go super in depth in those,
Okay.
but it's more or less when you're looking at the nervous system, everything that is happening within the communication is trying to understand and decide what needs to happen in order to survive at the best levels given the energy system that we have currently. And
Okay.
so it's going to kind of change different signalings, turn certain things on, turn certain things off, depending on what's happening around us and what we perceive is happening around us as well. And
Hmm.
that's important because it's not always literally what's happening to us. A lot of times it's also what we just think is happening, for better or for worse.
That was something I did learn on a previous podcast episode with some other guests. I learned that essentially you can create as much trauma or harm from fear of something than you could from the actual something.
Absolutely, you can. Yeah.
Like just the thought of being mauled, like you're around, like I don't know, use a bear. You're around a bear, and like it's a very full, very fed bear. It doesn't actually care about you. In fact, it's a panda bear. Um, and it's like fine, but you have such like a heightened fear of bears. This traumatic experience of being around a bear like scars you for life, even though technically it like just like rolled over and ate like bamboo or something.
Yeah. The classic example of that one is dogs, right? We'll go with dogs here.
Mhm.
A lot of times, when people are young, they have an encounter with a dog, and that dog might have like barked at them or snapped at them, right? But when you're that young and you're that small, you don't always understand how dangerous something is, right? And so you might experience that as extremely dangerous when you're just a little tiny person, even if the dog was just, trying to be friendly and they were just a big dog, right? But that can stay with us. And this moves into something that's actually really fascinating about the nervous system. Our nervous system literally stores memories. So, most people, when we think about memories, we think about memories within our brain. And we do have memories within our brain, but our nervous system itself also stores memories within it. And it keeps them physically in different places. And if we encounter, they call this aspects, right? If we encounter aspects that are similar to whatever those memories are, it will re-trigger the nervous system. And so if we encounter much later in our life another dog, and that dog is a little chihuahua, it could still set off that memory capsule within us and put us into a fight or flight situation, even though that little chihuahua is not going to do any real harm to us. And there are a lot of
Mhm.
people that have significant fears of dogs, and it's not only dogs, of course. It can be just about anything. Um, but but they hold that within their nervous system. It becomes a memory capsule, and every time we encounter something similar to that, it re-triggers the memory capsule and sets the nervous system off. And the essential design of the nervous system within that is, again, it's a survival mechanism, right? We encountered something when we were young and we felt like it was a threat to us. And so it stores that within the nervous system so that if we encounter something similar to that again, it can trigger faster so that we can react to it faster, so that we can get to safety faster.
Because the essentially the body love. That's why like learning new skills is hard, right? Because you have to essentially create new neural pathways versus
Yes,
think we love things that we understand or have done before that are very familiar because the connection's already there. It's easy and it's efficient.
exactly. Yes.
And I'm guessing reintroducing of trauma, the more you such experience like that one trauma, like the more effective and efficient you get at reacting to it. So like I don't know, loud noise,
Mm-hmm.
freeze, look around, run versus loud noise in the future, loud noise, run.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Now, what's fascinating about memory capsules, too, is that if you have a memory capsule somewhere and it gets triggered and triggered and triggered and triggered and triggered and triggered over and over again, it can actually build within that location, and it can change from being a memory capsule and become what's called a trauma capsule. And so basically, it has gotten triggered so much that it almost, in some situations, it actually gets stuck in that situation. And anything even remotely similar to it will re-trigger it, even if it's not directly related to what happened. And there's a fascinating case of this where there was this guy who would go to family functions, right? And every time he went to a family function, he just felt like really terrified and off, and he never wanted to go to family functions because of it. Um, Over time, what happened was he did some work on the nervous system. And specifically, that was through a methodology called EFT that he did, emotional freedom technique, also known as tapping sometimes.
Mm.
That kind of works on the nervous system in different ways. But what they discovered with that for him specifically was that he had this trauma capsule from when he was a kid. He was probably around 10 years old, and he was walking down the street, and there was this group of little bit older kids ahead of him who were kind of like troublemakers.
Mm.
And so he crossed the street to get away from them, and they followed him, and then they started to pick on him. And what ended up happening was he got knocked down into the street, and he chipped his tooth.
Oh no.
Yeah. So obviously not a great situation, right?
All right.
But what his body, the memory capsule that got stored there, is that kids around that age could be dangerous.
Even
And
as
so
an
when he was
adult.
going to, yeah, even as an adult. And so when he got older and he's going to these family functions, it was actually specifically the young nieces and nephews that were at the family function that were re-triggering this trauma capsule that made him not want to be at the family functions, because his trauma capsule was basically saying, there's all these little kids here. They might throw you on the street and chip another tooth.
Dang. That's an
which
adult.
which as an adult, exactly, which it sounds comical when you say it out loud, but that's because we think of it as comical because that's our brain using logic, but the nervous system has a different form of logic, right?
Mm.
It is just looking for those aspects that could be dangerous. And as long as they are stored there and they're not resolved, they can continue to sit there and continue to grow over time.
Okay, so I believe this is a both a concept and a book that I've heard essentially is where it's essentially like the body keeps score, like your body's nervous system is essentially like
Yes.
reacting to things that your brain doesn't even know.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Because it's two different sets of neurons, right? The
Mm.
brain has one set of neurons, and the nervous system has a different set of neurons. And that's part of that interdependent, right? They think differently and they can communicate with each other towards certain goals, but they don't always necessarily communicate together. And
All right.
so that's an example where the brain is saying, hey, this doesn't seem like it should be a thing. And the nervous system is saying, no, it is a thing.
So kind of like how like a better word, like I guess when I think like a fear response, I think like the hair on the back of your neck standing up,
Mm-hmm.
and like that happens before your brain knows that there's danger. Essentially, like your body is responding to something before your
Yeah.
brain has the ability. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Exactly.
Well, coaches, we've kind of talked about these trauma capsules and like what's happening. The way I've always looked at the nervous system as a coach is essentially like how and in what ways, what capacities can like the brain or nervous system in general affect
Mm-hmm.
muscle.
Yeah,
And obviously there's signaling, but there's also it sounds like there's also like trauma aspects to it. Could you
for sure.
go over in from your perspective when you approach the nervous system, or maybe even when you approach the nervous system about how it is impacting the musculature or people's muscles or people's performance?
Yeah. Um, that is going to be really a case by case basis, right?
Hmm.
But the easiest way to think about this is that the goal of the nervous system is to create survival within a situation. And so what's going to happen is that when it encounters an aspect of whatever triggers it, right, it will begin to initiate a sequence in which it has remembered created survival in the past, right? And so
Hmm.
even before the brain understands what's happening, the nervous system is already acting based on that aspect. You see something, the memory capsule says, "Hey, that is similar to this thing. Initiate survival sequence whatever," right? And the
Hmm.
body begins to act towards that, even long before the brain understands what's happening. And what specifically it does is going to depend on how you quote unquote survived it in the past, right? Which could, how you ended up surviving it could be so many different things. And that we get into that fight, flight, freeze, fawn again, right? If it was so overpowering that your body's like, I don't know what to do in it, it might cause you to freeze, right? Um, if it was something that you fought your way out of before, it might push your muscles to fight again. If it was something you ran from before, it might push your muscles to run from it again. Whatever the sequence was that worked in the past, it's going to push to do again, because the whole point of that nervous system is to get you to survive as quickly as possible and efficiently as possible.
So once again, leading back to the most important thing or most important job of the brain, of the nervous system, essentially, is
Yeah.
yes, survival first level, and then the next level right under that would be like efficiency. It's like
Yes. Exactly.
survival and then efficiency, whether it be
Yes.
survival or anything else, like whatever it is, like A, we're gonna survive, B, we're gonna be really efficient at it while we do it.
Yes. Exactly.
Ah, okay, coach. If you're comfortable, would you possibly talk about what happens as far as like learning, like because obviously like there's we thus far we talked about like the brain is like you're experiencing this thing
Hmm.
and this thing has happened in the past,
Hmm.
and so we now know when this happens we do this thing.
Yes.
However, I believe life has, lack of a better word, novelty,
Hmm.
and so sometimes some new shit happens.
Yeah.
What's going on with the brain or the body when some new
Hmm.
stuff happens.
Yeah. So basically, both the brain and the nervous system in those new situations, really the whole body within a new situation, is looking to try to take its best guess as to what's going to happen. There's a lot of prediction mechanisms that we have.
Mm.
And sometimes those prediction mechanisms are great, and sometimes those prediction mechanisms are not so great. And if we look at the nervous system, a good example of this could be that there was a memory capsule that recalls a specific color, right? So maybe something happened when you were younger, and the memory capsule, the aspect that the memory capsule grasped onto is the color red. And so now that memory capsule is paying attention for the color red, because that could mean that we need to be aware in that situation. And maybe it's not a full out, like, I need to fight this thing, but it's saying, hey, be ready in case we do need to fight this thing. And so now you walk up to someone and you see them wearing red, and suddenly your body begins to tense up, right? And what's happening in that situation is that the nervous system saw the color, said this could be a dangerous situation. we're going to prepare our muscles to do whatever needs to be done in case this ends up being a bad situation. And even if you just walk past the person and nothing ever happens, the body goes, okay, we were prepared. It might have been a survival situation and we survived. That worked for us. And so every time you start passing someone in the color red, or you see the color red while you're driving, um, all of a sudden your body begins to just prepare itself because it sees it as a winning survival mechanism.
Via prediction stuff.
Via prediction, exactly.
Okay. So essentially part of learning or new experiences
Mhm.
is either understanding or being aware of your own like prediction mechanisms.
Yes. Yeah. So if we're moving forward with this, right? When we encounter that new situation, the brain and the nervous system are going to try and figure out what to do with this new experience, right? If it has no context, it goes into a kind of a creative flow, you could say, right? Where it's going to be like, okay, we've never encountered anything that has to do with this. Let's see what happens. If it has something that is similar to something that's been encountered before, it's going to prepare as if it was that similar thing, even if it's not exactly the same, right? And then what'll happen over time is the body's goal is to create a better and better prediction method. And so the brain will be thinking, okay, well, this is kind of how things work this way. The nervous system's thinking, okay, this is how things work this way. And each time you move through a new situation, it's going to adjust that prediction method depending on how it plays out.
Constantly. So essentially the the prediction tool
Mm-hmm.
system isn't set in stone either. Like it technically
No,
is.
no, it's not set in stone at all, is the thing. Now,
Ah.
over time, certain aspects are going to become cemented, but they're not 100% set ever. You can always retrain the brain, you can always retrain the nervous system. Um, and we're getting more and more research in both of those areas. With the brain, you see that people are still able. It's called neuroplasticity. Plasticity, yeah, neuroplasticity in the brain, and people in their 80s and 90s are still have a plastic brain. It's not as plastic, and plastic is a reference to how it can change,
The mobility
right?
of it, essentially, how bendy.
Exactly. Yes. When we're younger, it is more plastic. It can change more easily, but that doesn't stop happening even into our 80s and 90s. There's the old phrase, you can't teach an old dog new
New
tricks.
tricks.
Absolutely false. Especially in human beings, it's absolutely false. It's also absolutely false in dogs, but that's not necessarily here or there.
I did
Um,
learn that. I did learn that because like my dog was old. When I was older, now I was still seeing trick. I'm like, they lied to me.
yeah, it's one of those things that I don't exactly know where it came out of, but it's been used as a you could call it a crutch for many
Uh-huh.
years to say that I am the way I am, right? That's another way of saying the same thing. And really,
Mhm.
that's just a crutch, and a refusal to even try to change. Um, but that doesn't mean you can't change. And so our
Mhm.
brains are extremely plastic, even into later age. Not as plastic, but still very plastic. And our nervous system is also very plastic. There have been documented cases of people with PTSD from wartime, things that they've had for over a decade, diagnosed as PTSD, where they went and worked on their nervous system And within about 5 to 8 sessions, there was a success rate, I want to say around 75%. I could be off on that number, but it was a very high success rate of removing PTSD within 5 sessions, which is
Wow.
like a month and a half, 2 months for most people you could do
Oh, it's kind of like a
with some.
like a once a week kind of thing instead of like
Exactly.
a okay.
Yeah. But within 5 sessions over, week by weekly, um, for something they've had for over a decade.
It's not bad, man.
It's incredible, especially when you start looking at many of the other methodologies that are out there have a significantly lower success rate. I'm talking
Sure.
less than 25%.
Oh,
Yeah. And so when
that's
when you start looking at those types of numbers, you go, "Whoa, the nervous system plays this really big role that most people don't realize."
hmm. Ish, Coach. Well, you have dropped some bombs on both me and our audience as far as what they can expect from and how involved the nervous system is, whether it be survival and keeping you alive, and the learning that goes with it, which is pretty much predicting inefficiency. Okay.
Yeah,
Well, Coach, the one thing I want to give back to the audience as far as like having a guest on for another time is what's a cool takeaway skill or knowledge, just something applicable to someone who has just learned a wealth of knowledge about the nervous system. What is something that can be given to them, taught to them in a short amount of time,
yeah.
um, or anything of that nature?
Sure. One of the methodologies, it's not the only methodology to work on the nervous system. There's a couple that I have gotten certified in. There's another one I'm really excited about that I'm almost done with certification in. But this specific one that I'm going to give to your audience today comes out of somatics. And essentially, what somatics does is it looks at the areas of physiology where emotions and physiology are very closely aligned with each other. And
Hmm.
so there are different body movements that we can do which help us process and move through those memory and trauma capsules. Now, I do have to tell people that sometimes doing somatics will bring up emotions. And so it is not uncommon for people to do these types of exercises and then start crying. And the reason is because their body has hit one of those memory capsules and through the movement is beginning to work through that memory capsule. And as they work through it, it releases an emotional response in us. And so some
Does
people might cry. Go ahead.
Does the memory from the memory capsule also come back with them, or is it mainly just the experience of the emotion that comes back with it?
It can be both depending on what it is and what's getting worked through and how deeply it is ingrained, right?
Okay,
My best advice for you, right, is that if you do an exercise like we're going to go into, and this is just one of many, but if you do an exercise like this and you hit an emotion and it's not too powerful, keep going through it, right?
okay.
Because your body is just trying to work through it. Now, if it is overwhelming and it begins to the technical term here is re-traumatize you, or you
Oh,
begin to go into a super deep traumatic experience, my advice to you then is to back off,
okay.
right? Because you don't want to re-traumatize and then get the body to begin to associate the motion with that traumatic experience. And so if you encounter that, back off and find someone who does this type of work, who is certified and is a professional in this type of work, so they can work on these things with you in a safe manner, right?
Coach, where would you say the line is just for the audience, just for guidance purposes,
Yeah.
as far as I'm feeling an emotion and it's okay to work through
Hmm.
versus I'm about to just re-traumatize myself. Is there like
Yeah.
a line that you can say like, hey, okay, I've gone too far, or
Yeah.
he said it's okay to feel the thing, and now I'm
Yeah. It's your
traumatized.
comfort level.
Comfort level. Okay.
Yeah. So if you feel too uncomfortable, right, it's better to err on the side of caution, right? So if you experience that thing and you're like, I don't know about this, it's better to back off. Better to play it safe than sorry,
Safe and
right?
okay.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? Because we've all been through our own experiences in life. We've had our difficulties in life. Some of them may be harder than others, but that doesn't mean it's not hard, right? And
Right.
so I would say to your comfort level is what's most important.
To your
And if
comfort.
it's beyond your comfort level, look for help, because then someone who's a professional can work with you and tell you, you know what, let's back off here. This is where the line is for you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, or is like, hey, no, this is totally normal. There's nothing wrong here. Go a little bit further. And they'll kind of help guide you where that line is. But if you're not working with that professional, do it to your comfort level. And if you're like, this is too much for me, then just back off. It's better safe than sorry.
Get on out. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Now, the technique itself, this is called the butterfly. This is one of my favorite ones to work through. Essentially, the way it works is you start with your arms out, you're nice
A little
up,
bit.
standing tall,
I'm not standing,
right?
but I'm trying.
Yeah, you can be sitting too. That's okay.
Okay.
I like to do it standing because I'll tell you why in here in just a second. But you spread out as far as you can, you
Mm-hmm.
expand it as much as you can, and
Mm-hmm.
then what you begin to do is you begin to bring your arms into the body, you bring your shoulders into the body, you begin to curl up into yourself, right? And if you're
Mm-hmm.
standing, you can begin to crouch down. I'm not going to crouch all the way down, even though I can because I'm at a standing desk. You
Mm-hmm.
crouch as much as you can and bring it in as tight as you can. And then you release it all back out as far out as you can. And you open up again.
Mm.
And you can just do that over and over. Do it for a minute, do it for 2 minutes to your comfort. And the idea here is you're working through your body and you're coming into these different positions of using your body as well as trying to tell your body that I'm safe here, right? I'm coming in here, there's nothing wrong, and I'm safe here.
Mm.
And it can begin to work on some of these memory capsules that you have. And again, if if you start feeling a little angry and you want to go as you kind of let that energy out, or if you start crying, that's totally normal. I have cried during this doing this before, right? So like totally normal. Um, and again, if you have that point where you're like, I don't know about this, this seems a little too far, take it back. Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that. Okay. Well, thank you, Coach, for both the knowledge, the information with regards to a very, I would say, unique area of
Yes,
expertise. Like I don't think enough people talk about or integrate the nervous system in multiple aspects, right? Like
for sure.
from the aspect of first, the brain separated from the body and the intermingling and what can happen,
Mm-hmm.
as well as the skill as how it's applied to us uh, from this. I want to. It's hard. I'm kind of in a confined space. So it's hard for me to butterfly, but I'm gonna
Yeah,
experiment with some butterflying later on today,
sounds
uh,
good.
and see what happens. But coach, thank you. Thank you for like I said, the time, the expertise, and the takeaway. Both those things are amazing. Is I'm going to put obviously stuff in the caption, the bio. Is there anything else or any words of wisdom, any information you'd like to tell the audience before I end the record?
Well, first off, John, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to spend time with you, to see what you're working on, to work with
Thank
you,
you.
because you're an incredible individual doing incredible things in the world. So thank you for, being around.
You honor
Um,
me.
yeah. And in terms of, you know, what I would say just to people in general. is that we live in a pretty difficult time, and a lot of us don't really understand how our bodies work and how they're designed and what they're really capable of. And so, what I would encourage people to do is one, it's okay. It's okay to acknowledge that you're having a difficult time in the world because it is difficult. And the world is not designed the way our bodies like to function. So accept that it's okay and seek help where you need help,
Mm.
um, however, you need that help. A lot of times people feel like they're alone or that they have to face the world on their own or they're not worthy of something or any number of these really complex, difficult emotions that we experience. And what I would encourage you to do is none of us are designed to be alone. By design, humans are interdependent. Just like our brain and our nervous system work together with each other, we are designed to work with each other. And where you have weaknesses, I might have strengths. And where we both have weaknesses, we might need to seek someone else that has a strength. And we have to come together and unite. And in doing that, we can accomplish vastly more than we believe is possible. One of the things I like to talk about, I write an article every day, and I've done this for over 1,200 days. One of the things that I've written about multiple times is that when you look at research, research focuses on the average, but the average overwhelmingly is sick and not in a great place when it comes to our psychophysiology. And what
Mm.
that means is that what research recognizes as today's average is not what truly should be average for human beings. And so we're capable of so much more than we realize. But we have to be willing to open ourselves up and to work with other people who can help us unleash that within ourselves.
Art of coaching, coach, right there. Nice.
Yeah. Art
Well,
of
that.
coaching, therapy,
There we go. That's another good sense.
all sorts of different ways that people help.
Well, thank you, Coach. Obviously that resonated with me, and I really hope that resonates with all those who are listening. Coach, thank you for both everything you shared because this was peak essence of information and application with that information. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and in the recording, thank you for coming to the quadcast.